Another Dooley Noted Podcast comes to you from the Coach's Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill in Celebration Point. And she will be out there with the tailgate guys. It's called Ravel now. We appreciate Teddy over there at Ravel, another sponsor of the Bob Dooley Invitational. And that will come up a lot over the next 6 months. I will tell you that. All right. We've got today, Heath Cline's going to join us. Great guy, good friend of mine. You know him well, most of you, because, of course, he had a show here for a long time. 107.5 The Game right now. Up in Columbia, and so we'll talk to him today. On Monday, Coach Spurrier is going to join us, and then the following Friday, Mike Bianchi's going to join us. Look forward to that, and then we're trying to plan something. And here's what I've decided to do, and that is rather than do a Friday show the day after Thanksgiving, when a lot of you, first of all, you got other things going on, but also Florida plays FSU that night, so by the time it's downloaded and everything, so we're going to do a Wednesday show, and we're going to have a couple special guests and do a great Wednesday show and post it then and get it up and let Tammy and Jason have the weekend off, or I don't know if they really are going to take it, but so that's our plan. Okay, that is our plan, to do a Wednesday show in 2 weeks. So we've been very lucky. Two hurricanes came through, and we really didn't get much damage. Of course, not everybody is lucky, and it was terrible the last hurricane. This one devastated some areas of Daytona seawall and everything. So feel for everybody over there. It's also Veterans Day. Well, mostly it's Veterans Day, which is a very important day where we honor all the veterans. Both my dad and Karen's dad served in the military, and in fact, my dad, I saw him cry 3 times. The first 2 I'm not going to get. Well, one of them was when my mom died at the funeral. One of them was something else I'm not going to get into. The third one was when Karen came up with this idea and executed it. That's why she's such a special person in my life. But she found a picture of the battleship that my dad served on in the Korean War, and got it printed, framed and everything, and gave it to him on Christmas a couple of years ago, or it had been 3 years ago. I think it might have been his last Christmas, and that he teared up for that because it was an important time in his life. And obviously for the veterans, we appreciate everything that they have done and continue to do for this country. Everybody, obviously, they'll be honored at the game Saturday. They'll be honored all over the country in different ways. We appreciate them, and we need to work on homelessness for veterans. I mean, I heard a commercial coming in about it, and it's heartbreaking to hear things like that. So we need to do more for veterans, in my opinion. But I'm not going to get political. It's all we've been doing for the last 4 or 5 days, really the last 4 or 5 weeks. So it is time for our hand law starting lineup, as we always do, to kick off the show. And, of course, the starting lineup presented to you by Hand Law, a Florida law firm which helps clients with government. You can learn more about Hand Law by visiting its website at www.hand.law. The firm is available for consultation in Jacksonville. the number one story in the Gator Nation right now is not the game Saturday. It is that me back when he did, it was the Gator Nation was about to implode. Everybody, and again, it wasn't the group as a whole. It wasn't the fan base as a whole. It was just a lot of people that are big into recruiting, and now, of course, late last night, he flipped over to Florida. Was it a big deal then? Yeah, it's a big deal, but was it a huge deal? No. Is it a big deal now? No. It's a big deal. It's a good thing. I get frustrated by the way people rip the kid. Now they're gloating about him coming. Whatever. Let him pick where he wants to go to school. Let's see how it works out. And maybe he becomes a great player at Florida. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he never plays. Who knows? But it is important. Here's the reason it is important. Is this shows the bulldog mentality of Billy Napier. Not to give up on a kid, to keep working it. And, the one thing I am a little concerned about is all the stuff that's come out about Florida getting him to commit, and the bragging about the NIL stuff. And I'm like, whoa. I thought Florida's supposed to be doing it right? So you're not supposed to offer people NIL deals before they get here. Now, a lot of people are. Most people are. I'm not going to worry about that, though, right now. It's not my problem, right? But it is the reason it's the number one story is it's a big deal in terms of the way people perceive the program. I know Florida and Miami exchange. Ventrell Miller is the one guy that especially that I important those walk-ons are a little like it wasn't like I didn't get it how important they are to the scout team, but they put out some videos and stuff like that, and you're kind of fired up about those guys getting a run out there. I don't know. There's just maybe I'm getting old, but that's a big part of the day. But here's the thing I keep going back to, and Jeff and I talked about this on the show Wednesday, I think it was. Yeah, Wednesday. Because he was sick Tuesday. And we had no show Thursday because of the storm. But we disagreed on this. I think Florida's going to be incredibly motivated for this game, not only because they can get bowl eligible, not only because they've got some momentum going. His feeling is they just want to keep getting better. My feeling is, look, these guys want to beat Spencer Rattler's behind. I mean, he embarrassed them and then trolled them 2 years ago when he was at Oklahoma. They should want to beat South Carolina's behind because that was the game that basically got Dan Mullen fired. That's not the point of it. The point is they went out there and did not play hard, and they kind of gave up, and we all kind of really. I've said this on the record. I may have softened on it, but that team last year was my least favorite Florida team of all time. And that was part of the reason, mainly because of that South Carolina game. That was the number one reason. So they've got all that momentum. And I did like that Amari Burney came out and said, we owe Spencer Rattler. They want to good. I mean, you don't want to play with too much enthusiasm. right? But you still want to play with enthusiasm. There's no question about it. So it'll be an interesting game. And let's get to number 3, which is on the hand-loss starting lineup. South Carolina is good enough to beat Florida. We know that. They've had some nice wins. They haven't beaten anybody special, but they've had some good wins. 6-3 record this year. The question we have, I think, here in Gainesville, but I think all over anybody who's paying attention to this game, there aren't that many people, but some people that are, is Florida really getting better? Or was the second half against Texas A&M just one of those times, and Texas A&M's really that big of a problem? They've got all kinds of issues. I don't know the answer to that. I think we find out a lot more. And this goes back to how we've had to learn, not we've had to, but we have learned about Billy Napier as the season's gone along. For example, what they did at Tennessee totally came up with a game plan we didn't see coming. None of us saw that coming. It almost worked. They were close to making it work. The way they came back in some other games, the way they were able to win that game in College Station. There's things we're learning about him as we go along. Okay, so now he's got this built to this certain point where, okay, it's been baby steps, but it's been built. Can they take another nice step forward? A loss, especially if they come out and don't play well, especially if they don't play well on defense, is certainly not a step forward. I've said this a million times, that this team, the defense could be historically bad. They've got a chance to keep that from happening, whether we want to log it in or not. How you remember this team is going to be basically on the way you play in November, because that's what we're going to take into next year. So we'll see what happens there. Number 4 on the hand-loss starting lineup, the finish to this season, I think, is going to be awesome. I can't wait for it. I'm going to get into my Heisman stuff in just a little bit. Pac-12 is going to be crazy. There are just so many great games. And don't forget that no matter how much people want to say, well, it's the entire season, it's the entire body of work, no matter how much they say that, they look at these last few games, how you're playing at the end when they start doing the college football playoff. And also don't forget, it's not just the 4 teams. There are other teams involved there that, as far as whether they go to New Year's Six Bowls or not. So I think the finish is going to be spectacular. I can't wait for tomorrow. I can't wait for next Saturday. I can't wait for Thanksgiving weekend. It's going to be great. And finally, number 5 on the hand-loss starting lineup, I did want to mention that the Lakers are now 2-9. Not a Lakers guy. I used to be a huge Lakers fan, but I'm not anymore. I can turn on you like that, just like that. The Lakers. How about these once proud franchises? The Lakers are 2-9. The Rockets are 2-10. The Heat are 5-7. What's going on with Golden State? They're 4-7. Now those are my guys now. Golden State. I'm a big Steph Curry guy. I tend to root for players more than teams, but they're off to a struggling start. So it's weird in the NBA. So that is our hand-law starting lineup. We will take a break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Heath Cline from 107.5 The Game up in Columbia, South Carolina. Of course, spent a lot of time here in Gainesville. We'll talk to him. I'll reveal a secret about Heath, too. That'll be really good. All right, we'll be back with more here on Another Dooley Noted Podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. Hello there, everybody. I'm Pat Dooley, of course, from Another Dooley Noted Podcast. And this is a great Adam Brewer, and he has just opened up a place here, Adam Drip To Go. What gave you the idea to do this, to have a to-go place?
We really like the fast concept, being able to get the barbecue. Now we have this new online ordering. So before it was a call ahead carry out, quick service. We have like a curbside kind of a deal where everything's ready to go for you. And then we thought, wow, we have a really great dine-in concept, but how can we make this streamlined for the customer and make it easy and accessible for all parts of town?
Adam Drip To Go. Come on down and enjoy it.
Great food, great atmosphere, a diverse menu, everything made from scratch, plenty of space, and locally owned. These are all the characteristics of a great restaurant, and you can find each and every one of them right here in Gainesville at Ballyhoo Grill. Ballyhoo Grill prepares all of their food fresh every day, from their salad dressing to their award-winning soups. Bring your family and enjoy dinner under the Tim Trebo Tiki Hut while listening to live music. Or if you're running low on time to eat out, they also deliver through Uber Eats, Bite Squad, and Postmates. A Gainesville staple that's been open for over 30 years. Check out Ballyhoo Grill on Facebook or at ballyhoogrill.com.
Things have certainly got a little out of hand lately when it comes to just buying our everyday necessities. Just look at gas, streaming services, and heck, even chicken wings. Well, there is one necessity that shouldn't cost a ton: taking care of yourself and helping fix all the aches and pains in life, and the fine folks at Titan MRI agree. With costs a fraction of what you'd pay at a hospital, you'll not only save money, you'll be taken care of by staff with over 20 years experience. So when you need an MRI, call Titan first, and you can go where your doctors send their families. Now offering CAT scans.
Albert, Alberta, I understand you were witnesses to a crash. Can you tell us about the accident? When you're in a crash, it's important to get witness statements immediately after the accident. Whether you're in a car, truck, motorcycle, scooter, or even a golf cart accident, at Meldon Law, we won't back down.
Pat Dooley's Story Time is brought to you by Eastlake Pediatrics. Nobody knows how to provide pediatric health care for little Gators better than Dr. Mike and the other board-certified pediatricians and the pediatric nurse practitioners of Eastlake Pediatrics. They have been providing personalized health care to the children of Pinellas, Pasco, and Hillsborough counties since 2004. And with the recent addition of Dr. Chris, who is also board certified in sports medicine, they are now offering care for youth sports injuries as well. To learn more about Eastlake Pediatrics, call 727-372-6760. And to get to know them better, listen to Dr. Mike and Dr. Carey on their Peds and Pop podcast on multiple platforms. Gator football is back, and the best way to get exclusive insight is a membership in the Gainesville Quarterback Club. As the oldest Gator booster club in the world, Gainesville Quarterback Club gives you the access to speakers like coaches, Gator greats, and more. Yeah, I even talk over there. It's pretty cool. Share your passion for Gator football with hundreds of other members at weekly in-person meetings or for non-locals via Zoom with an out-of-town membership. Right now, out-of-town memberships are only $150, and all new out-of-town signups get entered to win 2 Champions Club tickets to homecoming. That's pretty cool. Against Missouri, speaker presentations, home game tailgates, and special events throughout the year. Join the Gainesville Quarterback Club today. Email the club at membership@quarterbackclub.org or call me, Pat Dooley, 352-317-3444, and I'll get you in touch with the right people. Gainesville Quarterback Club.
Is your bank dropping the ball, not playing with heart or skill? Then you need to check out the scouting report on Campus USA Credit Union. That's a 5-star recruit if I've ever seen one. Campus has it all, like great rates and products, friendly service, and smart game plans for you and your money. So why not put some star power in your financial life? Visit campuscu.com or any campus service center today.
Honey, can I recruit you to take the garbage out?
Okay, and welcome back to another Dooley Noted podcast presented by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. And as usual, this time we always bring on a great guest, and we did again this week. Heath Cline, of course, you know him very well from the show he did here, and for a long time. I mean, I'm just trying to think, Heath, how long did you do a show here in Gainesville?
I started when I was a student in '94, and I was basically there through 2008 season during football season. My last full-time shows there were, I guess, mid-2008, but I did the football broadcast for the late limited Star 99.5 in 2008. So, yeah, I was, I guess, geez, that's what, about 14 years, more or less. I
remember that station very well, as you know. We we would always whenever we could, we worked together a lot, and it was a lot of fun. Now, of course, he's up in Columbia at 107.5 the game, and does a great job up there. Maybe he can tell us all the latest details on the wonderful South Carolina Gamecocks and how healthy they are. I know they've got some issues in the secondary in terms of being a little thin there with some of their backups, but are they a pretty healthy team? I guess Marshawn Lloyd would be a big question too.
Yeah, Lloyd's the big one. He's been by far their most important offensive player all year, and so we don't know, one, will he travel for sure or not. Last week we didn't find out officially till Saturday that he didn't even travel. They seem more optimistic about him this week, but it's anybody's guess exactly how effective he is. That's one thing for him to travel, possibly to play. Will he be the guy who's been the most important part of their offense? The secondary, honestly, they're missing David Spalding. He's a guy who's made some plays for him. That he's gone for the year, so that's important. They also earlier in the year lost Mo Kaba at linebacker, who is probably not a name fans down there know very well, Pat, but he was by far their best linebacker. Now they lost him in the Arkansas games. They've had a lot of time to adapt to the loss, but they still miss him big time. They are thinner at linebacker than you would like to be with quality players. It's not about injury; they just don't have good enough players, top to bottom, at linebacker. But Spalding in the secondary is one they'll miss. B.J. Gibson got hurt last week. He's a walk-on guy. Depth-wise, he'd be helpful, but if he's not playing, that's not that big a deal for them.
Well, it's kind of interesting. When I was talking earlier about South Carolina, and this team's definitely good enough to beat Florida. They have 6 wins already this year. I know 3 of them weren't exactly overwhelming. In fact, in a way, Heath, this is kind of why this is the part of the SEC that doesn't want to go to 9 games. Are schools like South Carolina who can schedule their way into a bowl game if they could just win a couple of non-conference games. But how good a team do you think that they are this year?
If they're playing their best, they're pretty good. They're not special, but if they're hitting on all cylinders, they're pretty good. The trouble is, Pat, they never hit on all cylinders. I mean, they haven't played a 60-minute high-quality football game on both sides of the ball all year. The defense has played pretty well at times, and then the last 2 weeks has really slacked off, especially Missouri. Their performance in the first half of Missouri was abysmal. They gave up 3 double-digit play drives back to back to back at home. I mean, here you are, you're ranked for the first time in 4 years, and you just do a total faceplant in that game against Missouri on both sides of the ball. It's just dreadful. Offensively, look, this team cannot get off to fast starts, and they broke that pattern last week against Vanderbilt, but it's Vanderbilt. This team, unless their defense sets them up for short yardage, like against Kentucky, they scored 7 points in the first half. That was a 7-point drive that consisted of 1 run from the 2-yard line because of the defense. Over and over, they have gotten off to abysmal starts in the first half. So if they can actually build off of last week, go out, put up maybe, we'll just say, 10 points in the first half. We're not talking go crazy here. Just 10 or 14 would be a huge step forward for them. Last week, the Missouri game was so bad, it really forced their hands in a lot of ways, not having Lloyd also. If they finally have figured out, hey, you've got more playmakers, you've got some guys who can do some things, spread the ball around. Don't let Spencer Rattler stand in the pocket and get killed behind a bad offensive line. Roll him out. Use his mobility to help you. If they have finally figured that out after banging their head against the wall for 8 weeks before then, they could win this game. If they go back to what they did the first 7, again, unless Florida throws up a gutter ball, which we've both seen they're capable of doing too. But
yes.
If they play as they're capable and the Gamecocks play like they played the first 7, if they do that, then they're going to lose this game to Florida.
Well, and Rattler is a dynamic athlete. There's no question about it. It's kind of funny that 2 years ago he was so impressive against the Gators. He was a Heisman favorite going to the next year, and now he's an 8-touchdown, 9-interception guy. I've watched a lot of South Carolina's games, and there have been times when I said, oh, there's a Spencer Rattler I remember at Oklahoma, and then I've gone, oh, yeah, there's a Spencer Rattler I remember the next
Okay, Pat, I lost the audio on you there, so I'm not sure. I know where you were going on Rattler. I lost the audio, so I'm hoping you're hearing me okay. If so, I apologize. We'll reconnect. But one thing I will say on Rattler is that Rattler has been he hasn't been great, but a lot of it has been that they have not helped him either. And some of that goes back to, again, the guys that he is working with. They don't have a good enough offensive line to just ask him to drop back and try and throw deep. The offensive coordinator here, Marcus Satterfield, has just everything is either a wide receiver screen or a deep shot. There has not been, I don't think there have been 5 slants thrown all year, Pat. I mean, they are not helping him. There's not quick game. There are things you can do to make a guy like that more effective, and they're just not doing them. And so that's the part I do wonder about. How much of the struggles we've seen at times with Rattler is about him, and how much of it is ineffective use of him. Because they got a kid in Jaheim Bell. Bell is a really excellent athlete, and yet they're barely using him in the pass game. He looks like a tailback on the stat sheet from last week.
Didn't he play
part
tailback?
Of that was the Lloyd thing,
last week.
But that's been the way it's been all year. Yeah, I mean, that's the whole deal, is that they've been using some of their personnel in weird ways. We thought we were going to see a bunch of 2 tight end stuff this year because Stogner transferred in from Oklahoma.
Right.
So you thought you were going to see some really smart use of 2 tight end formations, of using Bell as like an H-back type that could then run patterns. And instead, I mean, he was on the field for 9 plays against Missouri, and he's one of their best athletes. I mean, their use of personnel by their coordinator has made no sense for the vast majority of the year. So Rattler's got work to do, but honestly, I think some people have been way too hard on him that are not seeing the day in, day out around here, when they probably should be talking a lot more about the coaching that's been done. Because they lost their offensive line coach midway through the year. That hasn't helped, although the other guy wasn't exactly doing an amazing job. They don't block well enough, and they don't call good enough plays consistently, and it has been the bane of this team this year.
Heath, you and I have talked over the years a lot about the kind of weird culture that's very hard to explain in Columbia, South Carolina, and how South Carolina fans kind of have waited for the bad thing to happen. I think it goes all the way back to Joe Morrison. I remember that team very well, the Fire Ants. But how much has Beamer been able to get people to be a more positive and more uplifting? I mean, it's a great fan base. They show up for the games, and they are loud, and they are big fans, but they always are kind of waiting for the inevitable. Has he been able to change that part of the culture?
Not that much. I mean, a little bit, but again, you go to the Missouri game. They sold out the Missouri game. People got excited, and then they go out, and in the first half, they get down 17-0 to a bad Missouri team. And look, there's a guy up here that's selling Fire Satterfield shirts for the offensive coordinator. That's where the fans' anger and focus is. Most of it is on the offensive coordinator. And look, I think, frankly, justifiably so. He has not done a very good job. The culture here is not going to change until you do a couple of things. One, you've got to put together an offense these people can watch. I mean, Pat, it's just been hard to watch this offense, not just this year, but the Muschamp years. It's been just tough to watch.
There's a tradition of that with Will Muschamp.
Feel optimistic about. Yeah, there's no doubt. And now this is 4 straight offensive coordinators. Probably the one they feel the best about is Mike Bobo, and they don't exactly love Mike Bobo. So if that's the best you feel about a coordinator since 2015, that says a lot. And so you need to give people an offense and development on that side of the ball they can believe, because it's just hard to embrace an identity that revolves around the idea that you scrape and claw and you win games 20-17. When you see what's going on in modern football, that's just hard to do. And the other part is they've got to beat Clemson. And look, Clemson is still way ahead of them. Sooner or later, though, they've got to beat Clemson. It's the fact that Clemson is coming back to the pack a little bit, even though they'll probably still win the ACC, that helps the mood. It's one thing to be bad. It's another to be bad and watch your rival be in the playoff every year. But sooner or later in the next year or two, they got to beat Clemson. If you start scoring points and you win at least one game against Clemson, I think the funk will lift here a little bit. But until then, if it's just, hey, grind your way to 6 or 7 wins, hey, maybe we go to Tampa this year, maybe we go to Jacksonville this year if we're lucky, the culture's not going to shift until that's not what the end game of each season is.
By the way, you can follow Heath at Heath Radio if you want to follow him on Twitter, if you're still on Twitter. Even though I know a lot of people have bailed on it, but I don't want to get in. I don't want to get into that. But obviously, our Monday guest here every Monday is Coach Spurrier, and he loves talking about South Carolina and his time there. That was a dynamic time for those Gamecock fans, those 3 straight 11-win years. But, I mean, it took him a while to kind of get things going there. And then, how did people feel about him? Because obviously the way he left wasn't ideal.
Yeah, there are some people that still hold a grudge about that, and they're going to hold a grudge about that until the day that they get back to the highlights. Because, I mean, you talk about 3 straight 11-win seasons. They talk about 5 wins over Clemson, Pat. I mean, they got 5 straight wins against the program. They'd never beaten more than 3 times in a row. That's what they think about when they think about the Spurrier era. And, it's a shame it ended as it did. I understand why he did what he did, but it's unusual. It's unorthodox. And some people here will just never accept that idea that he didn't go through the final games of the season. They'll never get over it. But if and when they get back, they'll never get back to the heights he had. They're not going to. I mean, that was an extraordinary set of circumstances. As brilliant a job as he did, and he clearly did, you also had Florida deal with the aftermath of the Urban years and not really ever quite put it all together there with Muschamp, obviously. Georgia had not become the Death Star that it's turned into now. You had a lot of things going on there. Clemson had fired Tommy Bowden. That allowed South Carolina to get some of the players that kind of fueled that rise of the program from all right under Spurrier to special under Spurrier. You're not going to necessarily get that combination of events together again. But it can be better than it is right now. And Beamer has at least gotten off to a good start. I mean, they were set up after 2020 to be miserable for a long time. Bowl game first year, and they won the thing. And bowl game second year, even if they don't win another game. He's at least kept this program from just turning into a completely irrelevant, just disastrous backwater. But until somebody gets them back closer to the heyday of Spurrier, there's always going to be a segment of fans that's bruised about how it ended. Having said that, I think also with each passing year, some of those folks realize, hey, maybe I should have appreciated it more when it was here. Maybe I shouldn't have complained about why did we only get to one SEC title game. How come we lost this 3 games that I was mad about at the time? How come we lost those games? Maybe you should have just appreciated the double-digit win seasons while you had them. And I think some people with the passing of time are starting to grasp that.
Heath Cline with us, of course, from 107 The Game, appearing on the Big Mills Cheesesteak Zoom line. And we appreciate our great sponsor, Big Mills Cheesesteak. We're about to do Big Yes, No Way, or Maybe with him. But I got to ask you about what we're set up for here at the end. And I saw Shane Beamer's press conference on Tuesday, and he was talking about, and again, this could be just coach speak, about how the players want more than just getting bowl eligible. They got bowl eligible last week, as you mentioned, against Vanderbilt. So they've got wins against what? Vanderbilt, Charlotte, South Carolina State, and there's a 4th one there. Georgia State, right?
Georgia State, Kentucky, and Texas A&M.
And yeah. And the win over Kentucky was against a quarterback with no quarterback. Will Levis out for that game, and we know what Texas A&M is. But it's like it's like you said, getting bowl eligible is important. Do you think they can finish with like a big flourish here? I mean, I know they have Clemson at the end. I'm trying to remember who they play next week after Florida.
It's Tennessee, so probably not. That's
yeah.
Not a good matchup for them at all right now. That's
so they could go. They could go 0-3. Yeah.
No, there's no question. They'll be an underdog in all 3 games. And last year with Clemson, the thing is, Pat, because of the way Clemson had played, people kind of looked at last year. They had lit up Florida. They beat Auburn. They were playing at home, and people say, hey, maybe you can do something. And then they went out and put up a bagel against Clemson. It not just didn't score. I mean, never even threatened to score. It was that bad. So because of that, playing on the road, it's going to be hard for people to buy in. But if you look at Clemson, I mean, for Pete's sake, they went to overtime with Wake Forest. They struggled a good bit into the game with NC State. They struggled deep into the game with Syracuse. Now you lose to a Notre Dame team that's lost to both Stanford, who's horrible, and Marshall, who's not very good either this year. I mean, honestly, of the 3 games, you might be able to make a case that Clemson is at least as winnable as Florida, because you know the deal with Florida, Pat. I mean, if you get good Florida, then you're probably not going to beat them. But I don't know from quarter to quarter who Florida is. But I know what Clemson is. Clemson is a run-based football team that doesn't trust their quarterback and doesn't appear to have anybody who's an impact guy in the pass game. They might have a shot there. There may be an opportunity. We'll see. But because of last year, people aren't going to buy in on it unless they see it happen for real.
It's kind of a funky rivalry between Florida and South Carolina. I mean, you obviously went to school here, and now you've been up there a long time, but you've seen just about everything. You know, coaches getting fired right after the game, everything.
Yeah, you think about it, too. I mean, there have been some really huge moments in this game either way. Yeah. I mean, you think about Jarvis Moss with the block and how much that meant for 2006. You think about, Tebow in a lot of ways won the Heisman in this game in 2007. Yeah. South Carolina wins their one and only time they won the East. It's crazy because Spurrier had 4 teams in a row that were high-level teams, but the one that won the East was his least of the 4, but they won it kicking Florida's tail in the swamp. And that's still one of the most important wins in Gamecock football history. And so, you think about that. You think about for Beamer, last year, Pat, people forget that. I'm sure down here or down there they forget it. But the week before that Florida game, they had a grand total of 15 yards of offense in 3 quarters against Texas A&M. I mean, it had been a stone-cold disaster. And all of a sudden, you don't just beat Florida, you kick the crap out of Florida. You put 40 points on the board. It didn't look like you were going to put 40 points in a whole month of November, and you put 40 up in one game. So, I mean, there have been some really important swings either way. Heck, that game that got Muschamp fired, South Carolina under Spurrier had never been particularly great at special teams, and you blocked 2 kicks. I mean, what were the odds on that?
Oh, my God, that was unbelievable. That was the day Robbie turned to me in the press box. He goes, I don't care if Florida wins a game. You got to write that he's got to be fired. I'm like, I think I'm going to write that. And I think they are going to find a way to lose this game. All right, before we let you go, Heath, great having you on, but we have to play Yes, Nowhere, Maybe. We always love playing it. We appreciate our sponsor, Big Mills Cheesesteak. Street dining done the right way over at Big Mills Cheesesteak. And if you go in there and say you listen to the Another Dooley Noted Podcast, free French fries with your order. Let us go to number 1 on Yes, No Way, or Maybe. Heath, Stetson Bennett is going to win the Heisman Trophy.
No way. No
really?
Shot. Absolutely zero. No way. He's not the
really?
best player on his own team. Yeah, he's not even the best player on his own team. Forget it.
Yeah, but everybody votes for quarterbacks.
On defense, Brock Bowers is a better player than him on offense. No, I know that, but still, you're not. No one's going to go and say in the end he's the very best player in America when it's obvious there are at least 2 players better than him on his own team. I refuse to buy that.
I will
say the Gino Torretta Heisman are not going to come back.
The Gino Torretta Heisman. Here's the one thing though, like you can't vote for Bo Nix over Stetson Bennett, right? Because Stetson Bennett was on a team that won 49-3 against Bo Nix.
I mean, you wouldn't think if you're doing it just off of that. But I mean, one of the things though, Pat, that we haven't talked about as much in recent years because they've had more consensus winners in a long time now that we've had close candidates. But the West, having a voting block out in the West that has a guy in Bo Nix to vote for, that's going to be a big deal because a lot of years – they haven't had anybody that really makes sense for them to vote for. He'll get a bunch of votes for first place in the West. The question is, what will he do elsewhere? But, I mean, look, if a guy like a Blake Corum, for example, for Michigan, goes in and has a monster game against Ohio State and Michigan's undefeated, he could still get it. I think, obviously, I don't love C.J. Stroud as a quarterback. I know some people think he's the first pick in the draft. We'll see. But his track record under pressure, look at C.J. Stroud's numbers under pressure. They're horrible. He's 116th right now. In when he's under pressure. So I don't love him. But having said that, if he lights up Michigan, there's going to be a bunch of people who jump on that bandwagon too. I just don't see Stetson Bennett. I'm sorry. I just don't think enough guys can take each other out that people say, yes, I truly believe the best individual playing football in America in 2022 is Stetson Bennett.
All right, number 2 on Yes, No Way, or Maybe. You left here in 2008, I believe, right? Have you eaten a salad since then? Because I know you refuse to eat salads. Have you eaten a salad since 2008?
We're not counting fruit salads, I assume.
No.
If we count a nice caprese salad, Pat, a caprese salad, my wife taught me this. A caprese salad is basically just mozzarella and tomatoes and a little olive oil.
Yep.
So if that counts as a salad, then yes. But if we're talking about lettuce, the other day I saw a video. I will recommend this to everybody. The Cincinnati Zoo, their Instagram is terrific. Lots and lots of photos and videos of the animals of the Cincinnati Zoo. And they have hippos, Pat, very popular hippos. And so the other day, Fritz, their baby hippo, was being fed his first lettuce. And so now Fritz the hippo has beaten me lifetime on lettuce consumed ever.
You're just not a fan of lettuce. I get that. And finally, number
Not
3 on Yes, No, Where, Maybe. You are obviously spend time on another team. Frank Reich is the new coach of the Carolina Panthers.
Yes, if he'd take it, if I was them, I'd hire him right now. Having said that, I heard that maybe he's leaning towards the idea of taking a year away. I mean, he's obviously going to get paid either way, that he might take a year, catch his breath, and come back. One way or the other, the Panthers, Pat, in their history, have never hired an offensive coach. It has always been defensive background guys from the existence, right. Dom Capers, all the way through now. And even now, the interim coach, Steve Wilkes, he's another defensive guy. They need to find someone who is an offensive mind to lead things there. And Frank Reich, of available people, would seem like the best one by far. Now, we'll see at the end of the year who else might come available. But there's not a coordinator I love right now. There's not a guy like Brian Daboll. I loved Daboll, what he was doing at Buffalo. And I love what he's doing with the Giants. I don't see that guy in the NFL yet. So, to me, if Frank Reich is available and he'll take the job, they should hire him tomorrow.
Well, Dan Mullen's available. They can go get him.
Hey, you know what? You could probably do worse for quarterbacks coach.
Yeah.
You don't have to recruit in the NFL. That could be a good thing for Dan.
I know.
Don't even have to talk to the press very often. That could be a good thing for Dan, too.
Exactly. Heath, always great talking to you, man. And hang in there. And hopefully you're not getting too much rain right now because we just got most of it. I think it just finally passed through. And say hello to Mandy for me. And good talking to you, buddy.
Yeah, man, always great being on with you guys down there. Love Gainesville still, and love Spurrier's. I know you're at Spurrier's place right now. I love that place. I got a chance to swing through one time and check it out, and love what they've done with that place. He and Freddie, everybody involved, has done a great job there. So always love you guys.
All right, we'll see you, buddy. Take it easy. Heath Cline from 107.5 The Game. Great guy. God, we did a lot of shows together. By the way, I did want to mention we had a glitch. We had a computer problem last week, and Robbie's segment was up without his sound, so Jason was smart enough to catch it and get it out of there. But we'll get Robbie on next Monday. But we got to get a break. We'll come back with all of the other great stuff we do, including Hesser and Kipke 3 things. I'm going to discuss the Heisman and my vote. I'm not going to tell you who I'm voting for, and all the other great stuff we're doing, as always, on a Friday edition of Another Dooley Noted Podcast, presented by Titan MRI from the Gator Studios and Meldon Law. Hello there, everybody. I'm Pat Dooley, of course, from Another Dooley Noted Podcast. And this is a great Adam Brewer, and he's just opened up a place here, Adam Brewer To Go. What gave you the idea to do this, to have a to-go place like this?
We really like the fast concept, being able to get the barbecue. Now we have this new online ordering. So before it was a call ahead carry out, quick service. We have like a curbside kind of a deal where everything's ready to go for you. And then we thought, wow, we have a really great dine-in concept, but how can we make this streamlined for the customer and make it easy and accessible for all parts of town?
Adam's Rib Co. To Go. Come on down and enjoy it.
Great food, great atmosphere, a diverse menu, everything made from scratch, plenty of space, and locally owned. These are all the characteristics of a great restaurant, and you can find each and every one of them right here in Gainesville at Ballyhoo Grill. Ballyhoo Grill prepares all of their food fresh every day, from their salad dressing to their award-winning soups. Bring your family and enjoy dinner under the Tim Trebo Tiki Hut while listening to live music. Or if you're running low on time to eat out, they also deliver through Uber Eats, Fight Squad, and Postmates. A Gainesville staple that's been open for over 30 years. Check out Ballyhoo Grill on Facebook or at ballyhoogrill.com.
Things have certainly got a little out of hand lately when it comes to just buying our everyday necessities. Just look at gas, streaming services, and heck, even chicken wings. Well, there is one necessity that shouldn't cost a ton: taking care of yourself and helping fix all the aches and pains in life. And the fine folks at Titan MRI agree. With costs a fraction of what you'd pay at a hospital, you'll not only save money, you'll be taken care of by staff with over 20 years experience. So when you need an MRI, call Titan first, and you can go where your doctors send their families. Now offering CAT scans.
Albert, Alberta, I understand you were witnesses to a crash. Can you tell us about the accident? When you're in a crash, it's important to get witness statements immediately after the accident. Whether you're in a car, truck, motorcycle, scooter, or even a golf cart accident, at Meldon Law, we won't back down.
Pat Dooley Storytime is brought to you by Eastlake Pediatrics. Nobody knows how to provide pediatric health care for little Gators better than Dr. Mike and the other board-certified pediatricians and the pediatric nurse practitioners of Eastlake Pediatrics. They have been providing personalized health care to the children of Pinellas, Pasco, and Hillsborough counties since 2004. And with the recent addition of Dr. Chris, who is also board certified in sports medicine, they are now offering care for youth sports injuries as well. To learn more about Eastlake Pediatrics, call 727-372-6760. And to get to know them better, listen to Dr. Mike and Dr. Carey on their Peds and Pop podcast on multiple platforms. Gator Football is back, and the best way to get exclusive insight is a membership in the Gainesville Quarterback Club. As the oldest Gator booster club in the world, Gainesville Quarterback Club gives you the access to speakers like coaches, Gator greats, and more. Yeah, I even talk over there. It's pretty cool. Share your passion for Gator football with hundreds of other members at weekly in-person meetings or for non-locals via Zoom with an out-of-town membership. Right now, out-of-town memberships are only $150, and all new out-of-town signups get entered to win 2 Champions Club tickets to homecoming. That's pretty cool. Against Missouri, speaker presentations, home game tailgates, and special events throughout the year. Join the Gainesville Quarterback Club today. Email the club at membership@quarterbackclub.org or call me, Pat Dooley, 352-317-3444, and I'll get you in touch with the right people. Gainesville Quarterback Club.
Is your bank dropping the ball, not playing with heart or skill? Then you need to check out the scouting report on Campus USA Credit Union. That's a 5-star recruit if I've ever seen one. Campus has it all, like great rates and products, friendly service, and smart game plans for you and your money. So why not put some star power in your financial life? Visit campuscu.com or any campus service center today.
Honey, can I recruit you to take the garbage out?
Okay, and welcome back to Another Dooley Noted Podcast, presented as always by Titan MRI from the Meldon Law Gator Studios. And I think we're okay with the technical problems. We're still having technical problems. In fact, right now we've got a computer that won't work. So Tammy and Jason have done an amazing job of making sure that I have all my readers available for me. And that we need one right now because it's time for 3 Things. And 3 Things, as always, is brought to you by Hesser Kipke, a law firm based in Hale Plantation, specializing in employment, workers' comp, and family law. Visit their website at www.hklawfl.com or call Ken and Jennifer at 352-339-9920. You'd think I would have these memorized by now. All right, number 1 on Hesser and Kipke's 3 Things. I read stories today about Aaron Judge and where he may end up after this year. He's a free agent. And so they listed, here's the possibilities: Yanks, Dodgers, Mets, Giants, White Sox. And I'm like, I'm not going to be an Aaron Judge fan. He's got to go on a good team, a team that I like, a team that I want to root for. Certainly, he'll probably end up staying with the Yankees, and I'll have to really root against him. But it is interesting to see what a guy who hit that many homers. But again, he's probably a good guy, and he's certainly an incredible athlete. I just don't like the Yankees. It's the way I am. It's the way I'm built. Number 2 on Hesser and Kipke, 3 things. All right, I mentioned earlier that in November is when I get into my Heisman mode and I start really kind of paying even more attention. I've been paying attention all year. Nobody watches more football than I do. I've said that before. But I start saying, okay, who would I vote for today? And that's why I bring up Stetson Bennett. And Heath is right. Brock Bowers is a better player on that team. But Brock Bowers doesn't affect every play. He affects about 10 plays a game, either by being a decoy or making things happen. Jalen Carter's a great player. Stetson Bennett is what he is. But he's on my list. Let's just put it that way. You know who else on my list is Drake May, the quarterback in North Carolina. I've watched a lot of their games. He's been unbelievable. Caleb Williams is on my list. His numbers are incredible, but people don't notice him because they're out there on the West Coast. I'm going to watch their game tonight they'll kill Colorado. And I don't know where Hendon Hooker is anymore, whether people are still considering him. He's kind of got to run the table, and I still don't know if it's going to be enough, even though he put up these incredible numbers. He scored 13 in the biggest game of the year. But that's the thing about the Heisman and about the playoffs is a lot of us want to say, hey, this is a full season award or this is a full season playoff. It's not. It's getting yourself into position, and what you do in November makes a difference. Tim Tebow, as he on the Hesser and Kipke 3 things presented by Hesser and Kipke. Rose Bowl getting in the way of our 12-team playoff coming sooner rather than later. Rose Bowl says we don't want to give up our time slot, and you don't have to give us championship games, but we want to stay at 5 o'clock Eastern time on January 1st. And if you don't want to do that, we're not going to agree, and it's got to be unanimous. Otherwise, you can't do anything about it. The Rose Bowl has been a problem for a long time. And I know it's the granddaddy of them all. I've been to one. It is pretty impressive. But please do not let it get can you imagine having a story that big, like who gets elected, and the story doing is just hoping there's some left over for me. But here's our Adams Ribco to go Gators of the week, I should say. today. All the staffs who had signing day on Tuesday, all these other sports, I mean, football, oh God, signing day. All these other sports had these big days, and we kind of ignore it. But no, I mean, they all did really well from everything I've read, and especially softball. Jason Williams' daughter, Mia, who's the number one player in the country, signed with Florida. And I think the number one tennis player in the country, women's tennis player, signed with Florida. I know men's golf got a great player. Softball just loaded up with a bunch of great players. Baseball, it's like every pitcher 6'5". All these coaches, and we kind of blow off that early – it's not even early signing day. Their signing day in the fall. But that's why I wanted to honor for doing a great job. These head coaches and staff members got out there. This Mia Williams story, I read a story about her that was just fascinating. Broke her bottom of her – every bone in the bottom of her leg when she was younger and came back from it. Just a great story. And she was offered it. Well, she was 12 years old when Florida first offered her a scholarship. Now you can't do that. You have to wait till the junior year. In fact, I've heard that is the way everybody is recruiting young Charlie Woods. You can't even talk to them until they're junior in high school, which is a good rule, by the way. So all the coaches, all their staff members are the Gators of the Week, brought to you by Adams Ribco to go. Cannot wait to taste that. Let us get to the Gainesville Quarterback Club games of the weekend. By the way, the Gainesville Quarterback Club Tuesday night, Andy Staples will be speaking. Andy's been on this show obviously many times. Can't wait to see that and talk to him. Volleyball is playing at Texas A&M Saturday. This is to set up that. They need to get this done, and then you go play Kentucky next weekend for all the marbles pretty much. That is at Saturday at 5. If you can get ESPN Plus, you can watch it. Basketball plays tonight, Friday night, Kennesaw at home, 7 o'clock. Women's basketball plays Sunday at at home against UNC Asheville, Sunday at 2 o'clock. Our state college football game of the week is UCF at Tulane. Ranked on ranked. There aren't too many ranked on ranks, but this is one. UCF at Tulane. UCF is actually Tulane. I'm sorry, is a 3.5-point favorite. But UCF's 22nd, Tulane 17th. 3:30 on ESPN2. Our SEC game, LSU at Arkansas, and here's why I picked that game. LSU wins out. They go to the SEC championship game. So that to me is the most significant game. Now I will say this. Alabama at Ole Miss, there's some significance there. Alabama's an 11.5-point favorite. That game's at 3:30 on CBS. The LSU-Arkansas, LSU's a 3.5-point favorite. That's a noon game on ESPN. And then our national game is TCU at Texas. I can't wait for that game. Texas, 7-point favorite. And that game is 7:30 on ABC. So that is our Gainesville Quarterback Club games of the weekend. This, that, and the other next. And it is brought to you, as always, by Ballyhoo Grill. May end up there tonight. Ballyhoo Grill. We love Bill Reichert over there. Dar Shakow Insurance. And by the Ironwood Golf Course, home of the 28th Bob Dooley Invitational. This is that. Remember when Dan Lanning started the season, he lost 49-3 to Georgia, and we're like, oh, man, he may not be ready to be a head coach. Now they're sitting there. They haven't lost since. Been very impressive. That's that. And now, of course, guess what happens? He gets connected to the Auburn job and, things like that. Who was connected into any jobs earlier in the year? And the other is he addressed it during his press conference this week and said, I love it here, man. This is the best place. My kids moved 8 times in 11 years. We're happy here. We're not interested in Auburn. It may have been his way of saying, I don't want to mess with those boosters. I got one guy to answer to here, and his name's Phil Knight. Down there are a bunch of people with their fingers in the pot. So that is this, that, and the other, brought to you by Ballyhoo, by Dar Shakow, and by Ironwood. It is time for Pat Dooley's story time. To wrap up the show, as we always do, brought to you by Eastlake Pediatrics. We appreciate the good folks over there and appreciate Mike for being a part of it. And I wanted to tell this story because it's appropriate during Florida-South Carolina week because I was there for Steve Spurrier's introductory press conference in Columbia. And I went up there actually from I think Florida beat FSU the night before. Yeah, that would have been Zook's last game. I went and covered a Jaguar game on Sunday and then drove up to Columbia and got there in time for their announcement that they were not going to play in a bowl game because they had a huge brawl against Clemson. The program was a mess, and Steve Spurrier took over. And so I'm up there, and, of course, I'm a little bit of a celebrity being up there because everybody wants to ask me questions about Steve Spurrier. So finally we get to the point where they announce him, and he came up there, and I'll never forget this. I almost threw up. And it has nothing to do with South Carolina. It was that Steve Spurrier was going to go coach another team, and I knew it was coming. I was there for a reason, but I literally felt sick. And I was like, oh, my God, he's going to coach against the Gators. I knew all this going into the press conference. It was just kind of what do they call that? A natural response? It's not. No, it was some kind of a response. Anyway. No, forget it. I'm asking the wrong people to come up with words. Anyway, that's my memory of that. And that, of course, Coach Spurrier went on to do great things. And he'll be in here Monday. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about that. And we'll obviously talk a lot about Florida, South Carolina, and all the other stuff that happens this weekend. It's going to be a fun weekend. The weather should be perfect. The last band of this hurricane, even though it wasn't a hurricane when it went through while we were doing the show, wasn't that bad, but I checked the weather. That was it. So it's going to be nice. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be nice and chilly. You can wear a sweater. It's going to be I hope it's going to be a fun Saturday evening /